of today's worship guide that most of you got in your email or on text messages says this: grief, I've learned, is really just love. It is all the love you want to give but cannot. All that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. Grief is just love with no place to go. This quote was written by Jamie Anderson for another television show, Doctor Who. This quote, however, helps us as we begin to conclude this sermon series, the one that I knew would always fail, because you can't really talk and understand grief. But yet grief also, we know, never ends. And we have spent this time reflecting on another quote: what is grief, if not love persevering? So we have to ask, as we put all of these pieces together, what does it mean for love to persevere? Where can love and grief walk together faithfully? How do we take the grief in our hearts and in our lives and in this world and give it a faithful purpose and important places to go, so that that grief doesn't drown us and it doesn't drown others? Grief is love persevering. Grief is just love, often with no place to go. And yet we as Christians have Jesus, who helps show us where grief can go faithfully. Jesus shows us in this Easter season, with this Easter story, that love can persevere over the greatest of griefs. But that doesn't mean that grief goes away and doesn't exist. In fact, the resurrection moves us from letting fear and hate be what motivates us forward in the face of difficult sacrifices. The resurrection reminds us that it is justice and love that are truly the faithful steps forward when faced with sacrifice in difficult situations. It allows us, the resurrection story allows us to figure out how we can move forward in our grief. It is the first step of sharing with the grieving world a better and more faithful place to go. Easter is not an ending. It is a sign of the beginning that shows us where we, as God's beloved creation, need to continue or start or renew or go again, where we need to start heading. It is the way where we can find hope, faith, and all the fruits of the Spirit that can guide us both in difficult and joyous times. We know that life, even today in our concerns and celebrations, life has difficult times and joyous times. And most of the time, these are happening at the same time. And this is why it is important to live authentically into both our joys and our griefs in faithful ways. If one is being ignored or out of balance, then we're not able to experience as much gratitude in what is good. We are not naming what may be hurting ourselves and others if the other is ignored. And so we must be in constant prayerful conversation with God about the best ways to let both love and grief live in the same space faithfully. Today is Ascension Sunday, the day where the story services across our country and in the world. It is a time truly where grief and love are together in the lives of the disciples who are now figuring out where their love of Christ needs to go next. What happens now that Christ is gone physically? What happens now? They ask those questions. Is there a new king? But Jesus doesn't answer those questions. They have no idea what is happening next in this journey or how long this strange place is going to last. Instead, they're told, wait. You have to wait with your grief. And you have to wait with your love. And you go home and you're going to be patient, and then the Spirit will come. But this, right now, you have to live. Ascension Sunday is this awkward space. And while next week, Pentecost, we get to celebrate the coming of the Spirit, and we will remember that we are the Spirit, right now we have to sit and stay in this strange place, which is in the biblical story, but it's also in the pandemic story and realities. As we have said, we've experienced both major and minor griefs over the last year and a half. And yet within those, we've had unexpected joy, along with other more unexpected grief. We have been physically separated from one another, and often we feel like we've been physically and spiritually separated from Jesus. And we, like the disciples, know more, but we continue to have then even more questions that make everything more awkward, like mask or no mask, vaccinate, don't vaccinate, like all of these questions, and everybody's still arguing, and nobody can get along, and there's grieving in that, and there's love in that, and we just have to wait and kind of sit in it and wrestle with that love and that grief in a profound way if we are to be faithful. But many are not faithful. Many are not prepared to be vulnerable followers of Christ and givers of his profound love and patience and grace. Many have not practiced, prepared, and truly may not want to do the really hard work that is about to befall the disciples. A strange place, a strange time, a time where we are continuing to seek to walk faithfully with both grief and love. And it's a crucial time in the story. It is a time where once again we must recognize there is a love greater than what we can do and what we as ourselves are going to need. Because if we choose just love, we miss the point of Jesus' sacrifice. And if we choose just grief, we miss the point of Jesus' resurrection. We think that we got offered an insurance policy instead of understanding what it really means to be human and in relationship to God. Death and life, creation and destruction, other and self, love and grief. All of these have potential to live in a balance that points us to be able to live with love persevering in a way that helps us know where that love can go and to move forward in the best ways for all of creation. And we know as humans that at some point, once again, all of these will continue to be out of balance. They will leave us with more questions and awkward moments and staring at the sky impatiently wondering, what do we do now? Well, for this week, Ascension Week, we wait. We allow ourselves to feel awkward. We wait in our imperfect, unbalanced realities. We wait reminding ourselves that we do not love the same. We do not grieve the same. We are not gifted in the same ways, but we are all God's beloved. And God grieved to show us love. God knows what it means to grieve in profound, loving ways. And God knows what it means to continue to wait what love can really be for humanity. God knows that what we must really do is just trust, and how difficult and how hard that is for us. And so when we feel like we have no place to go with our grief, when we feel like we're not sure where to go with our love, we wait. We wait for God. And then comes next week. The really scary next week. Because at some point we have to stop waiting. The reality that our love and our grief have places to go. And God has entrusted us to go and go faithfully. And that faithfully going forward recognizes that grief will continue to go with us. It will continue even to guide us. Because grief can truly continue to be the most profound way to let love persevere for all of creation. Grief is love persevering, just as Jesus died to show us love and was resurrected. Thus, this Easter season is over and the Pentecost season is upon us. But we have to awkwardly wait to figure out how that grief and love will move forward.